In this slide, we are going to discuss the artifacts and commitment in little bit more details. We have already discussed that basically we have three official artifacts from Scrum, uh, which are basically the first one is the product goal. So I'm going to take an example here and walk you through that example, what we are trying to, to put things in context. So let's say, there is some product director or stakeholders which came up with the idea, and the idea is he wants to basically, he wants to build a website, right? That's the idea in his mind. And then what that product owner does is basically he works with the Scrum team to craft a product goal. And the product goal in this particular example is creation of a new website. And then what the product owner does is he collaborate with various stakeholders and the product director who came up with this idea to understand the needs and wants of the customer, and they put them in forms of requirement in the product backlog. This is the product backlog basically. So in product backlog, few minutes back I was discussing how the product backlog is structured. So in the bottom of product backlog, what we will have is rough requirements or modules. So these are like high level requirements which are not fully refined, and they're kept in the bottom of the backlog. Then in the middle of backlog, you will have more detailed requirements. Basically, the requirements which you already know more details about, you have refined them at a medium level of detail. So they are more refined than these rough requirements. You know them more, you have more confidence on them, but they are not as refined as this top section of requirement. Also, another thing, the way they are designed, structured is these. The top level, you have highest priority requirements. Basically, the requirements which you are going to deliver sooner in the cycle, and these are requirements which are of medium level priority, which is basically you are going to deliver them in medium to long term, and these are the requirements which are going to deliver it in long term. So that this is another thing. Then the this section like have, if you look at them, they are thinner or smaller piece of functionality. Why? Because they are already sized in a way that each of these can be delivered in one sprint. They are more refined, we know more details about them, they are almost ready for the developers to be picked. So that's how the product backlog is structured. And the commitment for product backlog is creation of a new is the product goal. And it's in this particular example, it's creation of a new website. Just remember that at a time there can in Scrum only one product goal is possible. Over the life cycle of product, a product can have multiple goals, but at one time there can only be one active goal per product. So remember that. uh, then what happens is basically the product owner work with the developers to figure out, basically they do a sprint planning event where they take I mean the product owner takes some of the PBIs from the product backlog, and he this event is held with the developers and Scrum Master. There the product owner gives a walkthrough of what of the various PBIs or use stories he thinks we should be developing in the next sprint. And the developers, what they do is they ask further clarification from the product owner, like they try to understand what are these use story and all that, and based on their understanding they provide the estimates on each of these PBIs. And based on the estimate and capacity available in next sprint, the team come up with what are the the PBIs from here which we are going to develop in coming sprint. And the team together, which is product owner, developers and Scrum Master together, come up with a sprint goal. So in this example, the sprint goal is design of basic structure of website. So in the coming sprint, basically the goal is, the goal of the developers or the Scrum team is to deliver the basic structure of this of the website. They're not going to deliver the entire website, which is basically creation of a new website, right? That is a product goal, which is a longer term goal. Sprint goal is what we are going to deliver in, let's say, in this sprint, which is almost a month. We are going to deliver a basic structure of website. Remember again that this is a usable component by the end customer. So end customer will be able to use it after this sprint. That's the idea. And this sprint backlog has to follow the definition of done, which is basically the quality parameters set together by the Scrum team. And basically, this entire sprint backlog, it goes through a sprint, a full cycle, and a increment is delivered to the customer, which meets the definition of done. And once it reaches the definition of done, then basically it is delivered to the customer. So what these commitments are doing, why we have these commitments? Commitments are intended to ensure information is provided to on all artifacts, which improves transparency, focus, and make progress measurable. So these 2 points, how are these commitments and artifacts, they bring focus and transparency. These 2 points I've already discussed in last slide. What I'm going to discuss is measure progress. How commitments and artifacts help us in measuring progress. So by, let's say, by the end of the sprint, the developers have delivered an increment, and we need to understand whether like if what we are going to do is we are going to compare that increment with the sprint goal, and if the increment have achieved the sprint goal, then we know that this sprint was successful, right? Or if we know that 80%, 70%, how much percent that was done, so we will be able to measure how far away from the goals, or whether it's sprint goal or product goal, which we achieved. And that's the reason we have these basically the goals available at each of the artifact level. So it helps you to measure progress in terms of where you are, like how much far away you are from achieving your sprint goal, product goal, or definition of done. Any question on this slide before we go to next one?
Yes, sir. So basically, who sets the sprint goal? Either product owner alone designs the sprint goal, or he discuss it with Scrum Master and developer to set sprint goals.
Good question. So if you follow Scrum guide, as per Scrum guide, the goal, sprint goal is decided by the Scrum team, which includes product owners, Scrum Master, and the developers.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not product owner alone decides it. It's the team, Scrum team together decides the sprint goal as per Scrum.
Okay. Sir, and in this list of artifacts and commitments, what will be the role of Scrum Master, and where does he, interfere, or what role he plays in this whole thing?
So the more detailed role of Scrum Master we are going to discuss in next class, but I'll give you an idea of it. Uh, Scrum Master's job, the main role of Scrum Master is to coach everyone on how to practice Scrum, how to uh, practice the values of Scrum, how to practice the pillars of Scrum, how to use Scrum as a framework. His job is basically to remove the impediments which are coming on path of the development team. So if the development team is designing this basic structure of website, his job is to coach them to remove the impairment. It's not like he's not going to remove the impairment himself. He will he helps the team or coach them to become self sufficient or self managing, so that they can remove those impairments on their own. The same way he helps the product owner in managing learning to manage the product backlog. That makes sense. So he, even though the word uses Scrum Master, he is not he's master of Scrum as a process. He's not managing anyone. He's not a person manager. He's not a project manager. His expertise here is Scrum. So he is there to coach, to mentor everyone how to use Scrum to deliver the sprint goals, product goals, the artifacts which are uh, the product backlog, or uh, sprint backlog or increment. So that's what his job is not his job is not to intervene. So remember that he is not a boss of anyone. In Scrum team there is no hierarchy. Everyone is on same level. Product owner, Scrum Master, developers, they are same level of people. They are not like no one is manager here. That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Does this
Yes,
answer
sir.
your question?
Yeah, yeah. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
So, but the more details we'll discuss in our next session, not today. Like next session, I'll go details in each of these roles, like what they mean, what they are supposed to do, what are their responsibility, and all that. But main idea, remember that this role is a coaching role, mentoring role, not a manager role. None of these roles are human manager, so they don't manage any person. So none of these are people manager role. So each of them, product owner manages the product backlog. The Scrum team, development team, they sorry, developers, they basically they develop the increment, and the Scrum Master is responsible for implementing the Scrum and upholding the Scrum values. That's the core idea.